Hello and welcome to From the Be All End, the Burnley podcast. A slightly depleted squad again this week. No Simon Evans. He's in a darkened room being force-fed Benny and Hot while being made to watch all of JJ Watt's US TV appearances on repeat. And before you all start writing in and going on the message boards, it's just a joke. Don't take offence. You could always do what I do whenever you two come on the radio and just switch off if you don't like it. And just for the avoidance of any doubt,
us two, are you two?
That is also a joke. We love you all. I am joined, however, by Chris Borden, Paul Woodhouse, and Justin Connolly. And we're going to be discussing this weekend's fixture against Arsenal. So after last week at Liverpool, guys, nice to be back at Turf Moor. It don't feel like we've been at Turf Moor very often since the turn of the year, does it? With the ridiculous winter break that we now have and the cup weekend and everything else. But Chris, positive signs. We were quite positive, weren't we, on Monday's debrief in terms of signs of staying in games against big teams, creating chances, and that was pretty much the mood of Vincent Kompany's press conference again. We've got to take chances, haven't we? But Arsenal is an intriguing one, isn't it? Given the threats that they pose, but also our style of play against them as well, perhaps.
Yeah, I think everyone watched the game against West Ham behind the sofa, didn't they? But West Ham are in a strange moment, aren't they? I mean, half the fans seem to want Mr. Moyes out, and half of them, want him to stay, being that he only won a paltry European competition last season. But it's as you say, if you can go off the performance at the Emirates, which again was one of those. Like at Anfield, they gave a really good account of themselves at the Emirates, fell behind, and had the strength of character to fight back and level matters. And Koleosho was causing absolute mayhem around that time, and again, more a defensive error on our part that lets Arsenal retake the lead, and then they kill the game off at 3-1. It's pretty much a carbon copy of last week at Anfield. But no doubt, Arsenal are one of those sides. We talk about the big six. They're one of those two or three, I think, at the moment, who are capable of winning the title. Obviously Manchester City and you probably lump Liverpool in that trio. But there's no reason again why Burnley can't cause them difficulties. They have to be better in the opposition's box and better in defending their own box.
Yeah, just in a real kind of missed opportunity last week at Anfield with the chances that we created, Amdouni and the two for Fofana and the follow-up from Odegaard. But again, the back line we talked about on Monday's podcast, the back line looking and feeling like a proper defensive back line, back four. Arsenal, as Chris said, coming to the game on the back of that spanking of West Ham last Sunday. Yeah. I don't expect us to be on the end of a hiding like that. Do you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, our performances over the last... I mean, there's been spells, haven't there, where we've sort of started thinking, look, this is coming together a little bit now, and it's not going to be long before we start, beating teams. But as Chris just said, every single game, you could sort of say the same thing about. We perform okay, we do well, we cause the opposition problems, and then we just give away silly goals. And when we do get opportunities, more often than not, we don't stick them in. And with the best will in the world in the Premier League against these sorts of sides, sides like Arsenal who've got, they've got Saka and Odegaard, players like that who can just. They won't miss their opportunities. So we've got to tighten that up. We've got to stop giving away silly goals from set pieces. I don't know how we do that. Vincent Kompany famously very early on in the season did say it was very easy to stop these sorts of goals going in, but I don't know why we haven't managed to achieve that yet. And maybe Saturday is the time that we do it. But the facts, I was really depressed, after the Liverpool game. I was thinking, it's just another one of those stories. And I look at the stats and I see we've beaten Arsenal once in 17 games. in the Premier League. So none of it is pointing in the right direction for us. But then I listened to you lot on the podcast that I missed out on the debrief from the Liverpool game. And now you were so positive. I'm absolutely convinced we're going to beat them on Saturday.
Imagine living your life like that. Imagine,
exactly.
Imagine being swayed by me, you and Bodes.
I know.
Recording on a Sunday evening. Christ. But I mean, Justin's right. I mean, everything is stacked against us. But I do think to the time we beat Liverpool at Anfield, first time since X, the time we beat United at Old Trafford, it kind of past results don't really kind of count for very much, do they? But he's right. We've got to kind of shore up defensively and not keep giving goals away. How do you see it panning out on Saturday? Are you sharing Justin's optimism, or have you listened back to our podcast and we were talking absolute bollocks?
I never listen back to our podcast because I know it's bollocks when we start talking about it. It is one of those, of course, it's one of those head-heart things. But at some point this season, we're going to come across at least one performance where we put everything together. And it's going to happen at some point. And we could very well be Arsenal's Everton this year when the wheels fall off, because they are going to fall off. They shot the bolt last week at West Ham, and they're not going to push on no matter what they think they're going to do. They've got it in the back of their heads that it all went to shit last year and it'll go to shit again this year, and it'll start on Saturday.
I see, Ribbit. You remember it said it went pear-shaped. I remember watching the game. They were at home to Southampton, like last season, and it just Southampton, I think they led twice by 2 goals and just got pegged back in the end. But they just, and it was just complete and utter dominance, but they couldn't find a way through them. Southampton weren't similar situation. They're like a keeper that they'd taken from City, who hadn't had a great season in Bazunu, and then a defensive structure that kept changing and blah blah blah. It might be one of those days where we cause them a bit of a tricky afternoon, and you never know. It's a shame we talked about these 1 winning wherever. The win over Arsenal came in front of no Burnley fans. And, 3,000. Well, we're about 3,000 Arsenal fans, and all you could hear was a generator running at the Emirates all game. It was bizarre. But it was a shame. Like I said, they won at Anfield and they won at the Emirates. And they almost don't seem to exist, those results, but remarkable performances.
Yeah, definitely. And Justin, I mean, we're almost in uncharted territory with positivity in 2 consecutive podcasts. But if we are going to extend the positivity, the run of games after Saturday, Palace away, Bournemouth at home, West Ham away, Brentford at home, if you could just find a performance that brings everything together, there is a bit of momentum that could be built. And I think we've said a couple of times, we've been looking for a run of games that you can, hang your hat on and go, you know what, we've got a chance of winning us home games, drawing us away games, and getting some decent points on the board in some kind of momentum, haven't we? And, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that we get a positive result, draw or otherwise, against Arsenal on Saturday. And then what does that give us in terms of a boost going into Palace away? Palace have obviously got their problems. Roy Hodgson, as we're recording this, in hospital, having been taken ill at training on Thursday morning. They're looking to appoint a new man by all accounts, so everything's a mess at Palace. Bournemouth at home, a chance to kind of perhaps eke out a bit of revenge given what happened down at down on the South Coast earlier in the season. It does feel like we just keep waiting for that one spark, and we might have some kind of lift off, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, obviously we've got to remain positive about the possibility of us staying up until it's mathematically impossible for us to stay up. Well, I mean, I feel like quite often on this podcast, I feel like we're treading over all ground, saying the same things over and over again, because the performances that we see and the results that we see.
Don't tell that.
Well, sometimes I think, especially when it comes to the the match briefings, I sort of think we could put the same one out every week and nobody would really notice, because we do. But that's because we're seeing the same things, isn't it? And this thing about, once we get over this game, we've got a run of winnable games. Well, I remember saying that in the run up to that bonfire night deadline that we set last year, when we said, well, we can judge what's going. And after that, we've sort of said, well, we'll give it a bit. If we're still in touch by Christmas, then there's. And now we're sort of saying, well, we've got, Easter's coming up, but where will we be then? But I don't know. The way I'm looking at it is this. I'm just going to. I'm going to use that age-old football cliche. I'm just taking every game as it comes. Trying to enjoy watching, some fabulously talented footballers on show from both sides, and let's just see where that takes us. I think I've said before, it'd be a phenomenal achievement if we manage to stay up from the position that we're in. I think we're going to talk about Matt Williams' conversation on Radio Lancashire the other night a bit later on, but he did say in that conversation that everybody at the club believes they can do it, and I think all the fans have got to believe that as well. And if we all do, then we give them a chance. If we start, throwing in the towel now, then we've definitely got no chance, have we? So let's just enjoy what's left of the season, try and put that sort of negativity behind us, and try and, see where that sort of positivity can take us. That sounded really unnecessarily positive, didn't it?
Yes,
it did, didn't it, Woody? I mean, it does appear that the best thing for our positivity is to lock Simon in a room swilling.
Yeah, he's the one that brings everybody down.
Yeah. I'm thinking we launch a coup and just get rid of him and get JJ Watt to launch him or whatever. But I mean, Justin's right, isn't he, Woody? I mean, if you've not got positivity, what have you got? We know we're fighting a losing battle. We know we're probably going to run out of games. Yeah. But that don't mean to say that actually we can't be building towards next season by really starting to nail down a starting 11 that's going to be here, that's going to want to play together, that's going to, hopefully, if we do go down, bring us the same way as Southampton and Leicester and Leeds United. He's hopefully going to be bringing us straight back into the Premier League with another year's experience under the belts.
Exactly. Wherever we are next year, we are building towards it, whether it's, Premier League survival, dependent on how many points people get docked, etc., and how we perform, versus the Championship. There's still next year to be looking forward to and working towards. And it just seems, I haven't seen anything over the past few weeks from the players or the management that would indicate that their kind of motivation is on the slide by any stretch. So if they still feel it's doable and they're still up for it and they still believe in the process, and I don't see why we shouldn't, and that we shouldn't back him. It's the least we can do.
Definitely. And Chris, I mean, you've been in enough press conferences, you've seen enough managers, and managers do go on this cycle, don't they, where they repeat the same old stuff every week. You've got to take your chances. They've got players who can hurt as market leaders, all of this stuff we've heard from every manager that you've covered Burnley under, and we've all seen Burnley perform under. But it is right, isn't it? I mean, I know that is kind of, a rhetoric for the public to try and inspire confidence, but you don't get any impression from Vincent that he's thrown the towel in, that he doesn't think what he's doing is the right path for the future. And there will be a belief within that squad and within Gawthorpe that, actually, there is still a chance we could survive this season.
Yeah, well, he's got unshakable belief, isn't he, in the project. And so the most impressive thing, I think, no matter what level of football, we've all played at different levels for different clubs, juniors, schools, etc. Whatever you've gone on and achieved. Losing every week, thoroughly miserable, soul-destroying experience. But there's no evidence of that breaking the players or Vincent's spirit. Or listening to Sander Berger after the game, and he was sort of saying, you know what, we hit onto something today. that level of performance. If we carry on doing that, we'll be all right, sort of thing. And it's heartwarming really to know that they're not broken. Their heads they came from a goal down last week, having the better. Probably had the better of the first half an hour or so, and they're not thinking, "Here we go again." It's testament really to the manager and the spirit is fostered in the dressing room. But you could talk about it's a different side virtually now, but the sort of mentality that kept them going to snatch so many late goals last season, it's keeping it's still alive, but it's keeping them going in another fashion almost this season.
Yeah, definitely, and it is made slightly more difficult, Justin, because we have got one or two injury issues and injury worries, of course, and Vincent Kompany revealed in his press conference pre-match that Lyle Foster is going to be out for a while because of an operation. He's had surgery on he said a chronic issue, so obviously something that's been troubling the South African for quite a while. That is a bit of a blow, isn't it? But I think we said on Monday, kind of Fofana, we weren't perhaps expecting very much given, what he'd done at Chelsea and a less than sparkling first half of the season at Union Berlin. But it kind of shows the importance of A, bringing him in, and B, getting him up to speed pretty quickly, doesn't it? Because Foster, as we've seen a few times when he was out with his mental health struggles earlier in the season, he was a big miss, weren't he? And we kind of counted a couple of games where we felt we might have got something with him in the side.
Yeah, I mean, and nothing against J-Rod, who's more than capable understudy, and obviously is still well capable of contributing to things. I think the lucky man in all this is Amdouni, because I think he probably would have been the one to step aside if Foster had still been fit. But I must admit, I did think that Foster didn't. He had a poor game against Fulham, and I wondered then whether there was something up. So he's obviously carrying some sort of he's been carrying some sort of injury, which they've decided to step in and fix now. So it strikes me as unfortunate when I think he's only 23, isn't he? And he's already developed some sort of chronic condition that requires surgery to fix. It's just a sign of the sort of stress and the pressure that we put these players under every week. That it's amazing to me that they do what they can do. But yeah, it's so fortunate that we did manage to get that Fofana deal over the line. Hopefully, that will mean that we won't miss Foster too much. But obviously, he would have been making a contribution had he been fully fit. I think Vincent said it's not quite a season-ending situation, so hopefully, we'll see him back on the pitch before the end of the season, and hopefully be able to make a contribution to that sort of relegation avoidance in the last 2 or 3 games. We'll need him.
if we're still in touch, if we're still in touch with 3 games to go, would it? It is right though, isn't it? I mean, it's it is a bit of a blow, but it does offer an opportunity to Fofana to build on what has been, a strong kind of, game and a half that we've seen from the Chelsea loanee over the Fulham and the Liverpool games.
Oh, he's coming in and had a great impact. It's just a shame last week he didn't at least finish one of those chances off. I hope that hasn't dented his confidence too much, but he's getting in and about in the right areas, and hopefully with a bit more time under his belt, etc. That rustiness will turn into more goal scoring opportunities that he'll benefit from.
Yeah, and Chris, I mean, Matt Williams. Let's move on to Matt Williams. Matt, obviously the COO at Burnley, he's vastly experienced. Was with the club kind of pre-ALK takeover, and he's known as a bit of a shrewd operator within kind of football circles. But he mentioned that Fofana deal. Obviously, the chances of Fofana still being with us next year are pretty much nil. But he did say, interestingly, that what it will do is it will continue that relationship with Chelsea. And, even if Fofana went back now, he'll have gone back a better player already for being under Vincent Kompany. I guess that is kind of gives us a bit of hope in terms of, Premier League clubs, bigger Premier League clubs are actually actively looking to send players to Burnley and work under Vincent Kompany, but also the fact that, there is a feeling within the players that they will improve under Vincent.
Well, if I go back to the loan players, you had the biggest impact last season. He brings in Taylor Harwood-Bellis from Manchester City. I think anyone who's followed Taylor's career, he'd obviously very mixed with his loan spells. He'd been over to Anderlecht, obviously, with Vincent. He'd been at Blackburn. He'd been at Stoke and been up and down. And he had an absolutely outstanding season. So much so that another side who, pushing for automatic promotion have said, we'll have a bit of that. And, I hope he gets his opportunity in the Premier League, whoever that may be with at some stage. Teller Burnley turned from he wasn't going to get a kick at Southampton, which looks an absolute ludicrous decision on the face of things now. Southampton were relegated and Burnley turned Nathan Teller into a £20 million footballer who's now with the champions elect in the Bundesliga. Under the bright new hope in terms of managerial sort of acumen in Xabi Alonso. But it looks like he'll probably be Liverpool manager next year. You look at Maatsen. So with the relationship with Chelsea, he had decent spell with Coventry. Burnley turned him into a player that, again, one of the European giants, Borussia Dortmund, have said, we'll have that. They can't afford him. Chelsea want 30 million for a player that Burnley have developed. Dortmund can't afford him, but someone will, and he'll enhance his status even further in Germany. But there are a couple sort of the kid from Dervisoglu, who's neither here nor there. Thank you very much for scoring against Rotherham. That was about the sum total of it. But it's we've gone from in the past. You people like Chalobah from Chelsea, obviously Patrick Bamford, who's just too busy crying or playing his piano or whatever that. And Danny Drinkwater, who on paper looked an absolutely perfect loan deal, but was an absolute calamity in the end. But you've gone from that sort of relationship with Chelsea, where your three loans there that were just an absolute unmitigated disaster, to now we've had Maatsen, and now the makings of a very good loan spell for Fofana, and Chelsea will be queuing up to give us, another bright young hope, hopefully, next season.
Yeah. And as Chris says there, Justin, it's kind of chalk and cheese from kind of perhaps our previous relationships with loan signings. I know kind of Sean Dyche, often underutilised, shall we say. There was the guy from Spurs as well. Was it George Ekendor? I can't remember who it was actually from Spurs.
GK Nkudu.
That's the fella. We were often accused of kind of getting these players, but not really using them. But, as Chris said, Maatsen has just won the Bundesliga Rookie of the Month for January, having, played 5 times and, created 2 or 3 goals. An assist for Teller. Really interesting interview for Clarets fans on the Bayer Leverkusen website with Teller in terms of what he's learned this year under Xabi Alonso and the fact that he perhaps didn't track back enough to begin with, which kind of hampered his playing time. But we've literally kind of potentially turned talent that wasn't doing very much into upwards of 70-80 million quid's worth of talent, haven't we, really? You kind of add the potential transfer fees to the 20 million Leverkusen paid for Teller.
Yeah, well, it's not fair, is it, really, if you think about it? We've turned these players into players that we can no longer afford because we've made them so good. It just leaves a bit of a bad taste in the mouth, really, doesn't it? But I mean, you're right. It does. What it does show is that that somebody in the scheme of things at Turf Moor is able to identify these players who might be underperforming somewhere, sees something in them that the coaching staff at the club can get something out of, brings them in, works with them, and then, I mean, obviously it's hit and miss, but it always will be, won't it? It will be a situation where sometimes it doesn't come off, but what they need to start doing is turning some of the players that we actually own into 20, 25, 30 million pound players. And then we can reap the benefit of that. But yeah, I mean, it's a good sign, isn't it, that these players who spent the time with us are going on to bigger and better things. It can't be a bad thing, apart from the fact that, we can no longer afford them and bring them back. I mean, I think in that same interview, Matt Williams he was asked by somebody from the on the text, a fan, why we didn't sign those 3 players, and he did go through the explanation. Not much that we didn't know about before. Chelsea wanted to hold on to Matt and see how he develops over the summer and see what they wanted to do with him. By the time we did a deal, he didn't want to come, and he saw the things going on. And the other 2 were basically, they wanted too much money for them, and we didn't feel like they were good value. All fair enough. At that time, we were all really disappointed because it was a team that we loved. But you've got to trust the judgment of the people who are in charge, and hasn't quite panned out how they expected. I wouldn't have thought, and now it looks like they made a mistake there. But if they can apply that same kind of model to the players that we've got permanently, and generate some revenue that way, then that's all good. And the signs are there that they're well capable of doing that.
Yeah. And Woody, I mean, it is easier to recruit in the Championship. I mean, the Mission to Burnley documentary kind of showed Vincent Kompany saying that, didn't he? Look, we bought Foster for the Premiership because it's much cheaper to buy him when you're in the Championship than when you're in the glare of the Premier League. You would kind of expect that if we were to go down and we were to then kind of build for the 25-26 season in the Premier League, having had another season in the Championship, that, we'd be as shrewd with his recruitment early doors as we were with someone like Foster. I mean, Brentford this week have just signed Igor Thiago from one of the Belgian clubs for 30 million. Now, a lot's obviously been made of how much we've spent on transfer fees, and we won't get Chris to tally it up because we know his abacus doesn't always come out true with the transfer.
It comes from Sky. I think they're pretty reliable, aren't they?
But I mean, it just shows you the level now, doesn't it? If Brentford are paying 30 million quid kind of, pre-contract to get a player for the summer, no matter how much we spent collectively, we're still a fairly small fish in a big pond, aren't we?
Oh, we are. I mean, it's that 120 was just to get something approaching a squad. It's not just trying to top up 2 or 3 players to take you to a different level. It's trying to rebuild the squad again. And this is the only thing about this, kind of current model where we're bringing in quite a lot of loanees, and then we know that they're going to move on. And then if we wind up in a different division the year after, there could be a little bit of a fire sale. And it's, almost a wholesale rebuild. And we could see that again if we go down, etc. And in a way, it's kind of exciting. And you'd like to think that after 2 tries at doing it, they'll start to get it a little bit more right. But that seems to be the way it is. I mean, we may get Taylor or Woodbellis back. You never know. But it'd be interesting to see who stays, who goes, and how much we spunk on a League One keeper.
I thought we got all the way through the podcast without mentioning James Trafford there, but I mean, Chris, in terms of the transfer market, I mean, a quiet January by Premier League standards in terms of both money spent and number of deals done. You would expect, I mean, Matt kind of alluded to the fact that, look, we've got 2 plans, one for if we stay in the Premier League, one for if we go down. You'd kind of expect that plan would be meticulously thought out, as most of the stuff looks to be under Vincent Kompany in the recruitment team. I mean, the areas for concern still remain the same, though, don't they? Do you think it's easier in the Championship to pick up a left back, to pick up a centre midfielder who's going to get you box to box than it is in the Premier League, and certainly is in January in the Premier League when you're in the bottom three?
Well, it depends what's been done elsewhere by those that can afford more expensive players and more expensive wages. I mean, I look at left back. We're talking about a relationship with Chelsea, and you look at Lewis Hall, who's gone to Newcastle, barely had a kick. Dan Burns getting hammered every week, getting rather cruelly abused by his own. He's from up there, isn't he? He's like his hometown club's fans, having been a major player in their sort of changing fortunes. But Lewis Hall would have been a great one to come and have a season. You can almost say to him, right, you're pretty much guaranteed first choice. You're going to play every week, and he would have had a better season than he would have done sitting on Newcastle's bench or in the stand or wherever he's been. But it's bizarre, isn't it? But I think coming down last time, I think we all knew. Obviously, Tarky was off at the end of his contract. I think there was a hope Ben Mee might stop. But obviously, there was Premier League interest, and he was going to stay in the Premier League. Dwight was always going to go. He ain't holding on to that sort of level of talent. Collins again, you probably thought it was going to be a tough ass to hold on to him. Popey, not a cat in hell's chance. and Cornet, etc. But this time, there's probably the question is, who are the Premier League clubs? I think Matt called the vultures, didn't he? But who are the vultures going to come for? That's Koleosho. Koleosho's, it's a relatively small sample size. He's had a fabulous little account of his ability. Is someone going to take a punt on him? Odegaard, similar. Has he done enough to sort of warrant someone taking and it would be a gamble because he'd cost more than the whatever £10 million or so that purportedly we paid. I think I'm doing it. To me, he's shown flashes and he's shown he's got great ability. Someone going to spend give us a profit on him. Trafford, likewise. So O'Shea might be one. That might sneakily someone might have a punt on him. It's probably not as clear cut in that regard, and it might drag on as a result. And leave you, a bit less certain about what direction you may be able to take.
Yeah, and Justin, I mean, before any kind of major incomings, there will have to be outgoings. That's the nature of the business we're running at Burnley, I guess. But I mean, Chris is right. I mean, there's Premier League sometimes do have that, or Premier League clubs sometimes have that. I don't know, that almost. Even if a player like Odegaard has only played, 35 times or whatever, or 25 times, whatever it'll end up being, the odd flash is kind of like enough sometimes to tempt a Premier League club. But it's not always good for the player, is it? Because they get snapped up by maybe a West Ham or a Wolves or whatever, but then they don't get played, So they've gone from playing week in, week out in the Premier League and showing flashes to these clubs almost. These kind of like middle league clubs stockpiling these players so other teams can't have them. They know Burnley will sell, and they think, well, actually, if we pay 15 million for Odegaard and Burnley make a 5 million profit, A, it's good business for Burnley Football Club because they've made 50% on a player, profit on a player, and B, we get them in case that actually, we can start to blood them in a little bit more. A kind of slower pace, shall you say? But you do wonder who the vultures would be for a lot of the Burnley squad, don't you?
Well, absolutely. I mean, as Chris said, it was very obvious that the players that did go were the ones that were going to go, and they were going to go for decent money as well. And all of them, I think, apart from possibly Cornet, who has been just as injury prone as he was when he was with us. Obviously, a talented player with lots to offer, but if he's not on the pitch, he can't do much, can he? I think all the others have had good times with the clubs that they've had and contributed a lot, haven't they? Obviously, we are now in a position where we've packed the squad full of young, unproven players, And all they've proved this season is that they're not up to playing in the Premier League yet, at least. So it seems to me fanciful to suggest that any of them are going to go for decent money. I mean, we paid decent money for a lot of them. I don't know that that the £90 million that we supposedly paid for James Trafford is accurate. If it is, it doesn't take a genius to work out that literally nobody in any division is going to pay anywhere near that for him now, especially if we go down. Whether he wants to go or not, it doesn't matter, does it? We're not going to get that money back. Amdouni likewise. I think we paid a decent sum for him as well. I think when it comes to Odegaard and Koleosho, I think we're still looking at raw potential there. They've shown that they've got that raw potential, but they haven't necessarily shown yet that potential can be turned into, a player that can regularly contribute, goals and assists. I think Odegaard's probably done a little bit more on that front than Koleosho did. Koleosho was very direct, really quick, caused defences a lot of problems, but there wasn't a lot of product at the end of it, was it? That obviously will come with time. To be honest with you, I hope that we hold on to these players. I hope that we can, if we do go. I remember talking to a friend of mine who happens to be a Blackburn Rovers player who was gloating about the fact that they looked like we were going to go down to the towards the end of Sean Dyche's era. And I was saying, well, it might be a good thing for us because we can we've got owners now who seem willing to invest. We can refresh the squad, invest in some players, give them some experience in the Championship, which is a little bit more forgiving, in terms of the levels, in terms of the scrutiny, in terms of the number of games you've got. It's not quite as it's there's more time to recover if you mess things up. And I sort of feel like we're a little bit in a similar sort of position. We're not going to generate a lot of money from transfers, so we're not going to be spending another £100 million in the summer. But if we can hang on to these players who've shown this potential, draw them back from this limelight, give James Trafford a season in the Championship, give Koleosho and Odegaard, give these players will be stars in the Championship. And if we do get that spark, if we do manage to pull this thing together and have a season like we did last season, they will benefit enormously from that experience if we can get ourselves back into the Premier League, and we'll be, much closer to the finished article than they are now.
Yeah, definitely. And Woody, just finally, just to kind of spin something Justin said on its head about the players proving that they're not good enough at this level yet, and I fully buy into that. I wonder whether if you take individuals out of this team and put them into another team, it is what I'm saying. Is the problem that collectively as a team they're not good enough yet, or is it individuals not good enough yet? And I might be kind of asking the same question in two different ways, but I wonder whether some Premier League clubs might go, well, actually, him in our system with more experienced players around them perhaps gives them a better chance of success. I wonder whether we're perhaps stopping their success by throwing lots of them into the team together and basically saying sink or swim, and at the minute they're doggy paddling for their lives.
I think that's exactly right. And I think there's probably a good case for quite a few of them who could fit in to other systems as backup, etc. And they'll pay a reasonable amount for that. I can see Sander Berg being wanted by somebody in the bottom half at least, because he's improved markedly over this year. And, the likes of Odegaard, I can see probably needs another season in the Championship. But if people, if bigger clubs have seen something in him, then they're going to loan him out. They're going to get him now when he's cheaper, as opposed to him being the full deal, and they can loan him back to the Championship, etc., etc. So I can definitely see that. And I think you're probably right in terms of the fact that they got thrown together and they maybe sank a little bit more than they swam. Which is understandable. It's understandable.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we were positive for most of that, I think, weren't we? Given some episodes, I think that's quite positive. So let's end it there. Don't forget, you've missed your chance to buy your loved one a From the BLN t-shirt for Valentine's Day, but Easter is coming up, and nothing says Happy Easter quite like a From the BLN t-shirt. They are still available from our web shop at shop.fromthebln.com. The designs that we've got at the minute will rotate. So if you do fancy a 99% misery t-shirt in tribute to our very own Justin Connolly, and why wouldn't you when you sat in the Bob Lord stand? Head to the web shop now and get those. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media. We're at Beehole Podcast, and don't forget to rate, like, share. Tell your friends, do everything you can to kind of keep pushing us up those charts. Thanks to everyone who voted on Twitter in the Best Burnley Podcast poll that went out the other day. I think we were quite clear that everyone should listen to everyone's podcast because it's a brilliant little ecosystem that we've got around everything to do with Burnley Football Club. So a big shout out to our friends and rivals, No Nay Never and Turfcast, for their contributions to this ecosystem. We'll be back on Monday with hopefully a second consecutive positive debrief. Certainly we'll try and find the positives, whatever happens. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week, enjoy your weekend, and up the Clarets.
Jimmy McElroy to Upton. Go!